Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Well, good morning and welcome to the show this very lovely Wednesday morning, the 28th of December, 2022. Cold, but yes, beautiful, beautiful morning. Thank you for joining us on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, reaching you live from StarTimes channel 190 DTT. Remember, you can follow us on all our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, Western Spring Television, and on YouTube. Remember to subscribe to our channel, Western Spring Television, but on Twitter, it is at WSTV_NG. My name is Emmanuel Ujadigele. I'd like to thank you so much for sticking with us and for being patient with us and for joining us at this point in the program. Of course, you know that we have 3 segments. We bring you the newspaper analysis, our interview segment, and what's trending. We have a guest in the house to help us speak to some of the issues, some of the stories that are making the headlines, making the rounds. He's a veteran journalist and a man of many parts. But I'd like to introduce him as one of the leading veteran journalists in Osun State. You get to meet him after this break. All right, thank you for staying with us. We'll go straight to the papers. But like I said, we have a guest in the house this morning, a veteran journalist, Dr. Femi Adefila. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr.
Thank you, Marlon. Good morning.
All right, we'll go straight to the papers now. We'll begin with the Punch newspaper this morning. The banner headline says, PDP crisis. Aggrieved governors may endorse Obasanjo's candidate January 5. A number of writers there. Governors at London meeting vow to back Southern presidency. Name your preferred presidential candidate. PDP dares angry governors. Good luck to Atiku if he thinks he can win without us. That's coming from Chief Odejo. Now let's look at the crisis rocking the opposition PDP at the moment. The 5 governors, the G5 governors are currently in the UK. They say they want to endorse their candidates by January. Where do you see them tilting to?
Well, I want to say, Emmanuel, it's a very interesting drama. It's a melodrama. And they will eventually have to endorse the presidential candidate because they will. I don't see them endorsing Atiku Abubakar because that actually is the crux of the matter because they wanted IU out. Atiku insists that he has no power within the law to tell IU to bow down, and IU has not voluntarily bowed out. I see them teaching the pendulum in favor of either Obi or Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. But if anything, Punch is reporting is anything to reckon with, that they want to endorse the candidate of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. Obasanjo has not hidden his preference for Mr. Peter Obi. He has said it openly. He's been canvassing for him. But I want to say that eventually, when the chicken comes home to roost, they may not all have one homogeneous candidate. It may differ from state to state. But if Wike endorses Peter Obi, some other governor may say Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. But ultimately, the decision lies with the electorate, who are the ultimate stakeholders in the Nigerian business and in democratic dispensation. But it's for them to, as dog handlers, to say, okay, for my state, this is my candidate. But a tree does not make a forest in democracy. It's a government of majority.
Well, certainly government of majority. That crisis, that's the aftermath of the People's Democratic Party's presidential elections earlier, primary elections earlier in the year. From politics below that story, you see Oyo Niger crashes killed 27 die in Calabar Carnival. Ekiti Tribunal delivers judgment today. Lagos 6 recovery of 3 drowned beachgoers. Presidential panel reviewing worker salaries in Gigi. Now let's look at the tribunal in Ekiti State. Very interesting one there. The judiciary has begun to play a very vital role in the electoral process in the long run. It's been like that for a while now. But do you see this as some say that it overturns the will of the people? You know, some of the judgments are given based on technicalities and all of that. How does it relate side by side with the true will of the people?
Well, democracy stands on a tripod. the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Judiciary, as we weaved our constitution, they have a powerful role to play who becomes the governor. If you go to the ballot, you go to the poll, and there's no clear-cut winner, or someone feels he's been cheated, he can make recourse to the judiciary to say, hey, please, I have issues. It's unfortunate that most often than not, we have so many judicial governors all over. But that is the beauty of democracy. The Constitution has allowed judiciary to ventilate, to adjudicate when we have electoral dispute of this nature. It's just for politicians to learn to be good players and to win, and to learn to be a good loser. Most often than not, because of the huge investment they make invest in election, is a hard nut to crack for them to accept defeat. So they want to test. I mean, they want to test it again at the judiciary level that, okay, perhaps if I don't win at the polls, I may win in the court of law. So it's within their right, actually. It's within their fundamental human right as politicians, as Nigerians, to test the validity of their win or loss at the judiciary.
All right, that's that about the tribunal. Don't forget that there's also a case in Osun State. The APC and former Governor Adegboyega Oyetola are in court challenging the declaration of PDP candidate Senator Ademola Adeleke as a democratically elected governor of the state. Above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper this morning, economic crunch. Senate proposes 376 new agencies. Sean's Oronsanya report. 9th Senate sponsors 1,000 establishments bills. Snobs plan civil service restructuring. This is not too good.
Honestly, it's not too good. And I'm disappointed if indeed the Senate is proposing additional agencies. 376. Wow, that is disappointing, and it is sickening, and it tells us that we are not serious as a nation, because Oronsanya report made it clear that we are overgoverned. We have too many agencies duplicating duties. We just establish agencies as job for the boys. When we fashion out these agencies, it is not for effectiveness or for their functionality, but because I want to carve an agency out for my brother, for my sister, or another access to the slush fund. And that is why we are overgoverned as a people. So many agencies. It shocked me when I drive around the city of Osogbo and I see Ministry of Agriculture, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Federal Ministry of Tourism, Federal Ministry of this and that. Then you ask yourself, what are the relevancies of these agencies? So if you are now establishing new agencies at a time that we are going through a dire strait as a nation, our economics is in a cul-de-sac. We are not making money. We spend so much money financing our debt than what we make as a nation. Our foreign reserve has depleted substantially, about $39 billion, when a single human being, Elon Musk, bought Twitter for $40 billion. That tells you that a single human being is richer than the Nigerian state, about 200 and something million people. It is a time to look inward and actually shrink governance, not to expand the scope of governance. But what we do, because we are not particularly very serious, and politicians, most often than not, they think about themselves. They are not futuristic. They just want to establish something, not because it will serve the purpose of effective governance, but because access to slush fund, access to national trustee, and access to national cake. And it's very unfortunate. This is time we should be thinking of limiting or reducing the scope of governance, not expanding the basket.
We know that the right authorities are listening. It's time to cut down on the cost of governance. Too many agencies duplicating roles. It's not too good for the Nigerian economy. Still on the Punch newspaper, Naira redesign, flooding affected agri sector 2022, coming from the governors. And then just besides the nameplates there, my daughter pregnant with twins died with her glory, slain lawyer's mom. Again, police brutality in the news, and this one on Christmas Day. Very sad way to begin the festive period and to even enter into the new year for the family of that lawyer.
It's very unfortunate, and I commiserate with the family, and my mind and my heart goes to them. What I want to say is this: something must be done about the Lekki Aja axis. That police station where the culprit, the alleged police officer that fired the shot, comes from, was where the police officer that killed the guy that died early this year also came from. That tells you that something is wrong with the mindset of people in that axis. On a Christmas day, returning from church with your husband by your side, and you were shot dead. I was actually in Lagos, and hitherto we believe that that axis was the safest part of Nigeria when you're on the island, from Victoria Land to VGC to Ikoyi and Lekki. But now that is changing. And even anywhere, with what we saw with NSAS, policemen must have learned their lessons. That was what we assumed. But it tells us that we still have these bad eggs within the police force. Most of them, when you get to police, what do you call it now, roadblocks, they smell with alcohol. They are high most often than not. I think the police needs to do a lot of mind search and to remove this bad egg. I know we have the good, the bad, and the ugly in every structure, but the police interfaces with citizenry directly. So all these kind of issues, we should say bye to it. Enough of police brutality, enough of snuffing life out of innocent citizens.
Well, there have been conversations around the recruitment process, psychological test and all of that. Do you tend to agree with that?
I agree with you. Psychosocial test, we have to do that. Take it seriously. The police is not a place where you just hire someone because he hasn't got anything else to do. I think he must even raise the bar of education. For instance, I think if we limit it to OND or HND or even the degree holder, and beyond that, we need to do medical check, background check, security check. Let's know where you are coming from. There was a time in this nation that an IG admitted openly that they've recruited armed robbers into the police system. Because how do you get recruited into the police? You bribe your way through. You pay for the form, you pay for the system, you pay for the slot. So nobody cares who you are or whether you have the interest to serve as a police officer at heart. You just get recruited. So we do need to focus on psychosocials and medical check before we recruit people into the police system.
And we hope that that will stop the incessant killings by rogue police officers. We do commend some of the upright police officers.
Right. Fantastic
who are
officers
doing their jobs,
yes.
But the bad eggs need to stop. They need to be stopped if they do not want to stop. Away from the Punch newspaper this morning, we move on to The Nation. The Nation newspaper this morning has as its banner headline, government raises hope on salary increase for workers in 2023. And just one rider there, move to caution rising inflation effects, says Ngige. Salary increase when minimum wage is still a very contentious issue.
Honestly speaking, Nigerians need pay rise. Prices of things have skyrocketed out there, but it is not a good song for government to sing at a time like this, when the resources are depleted substantially. What accrues to the nation's treasury is limited. We are not making money. We're actually a poor nation, but Nigerians don't accept that this is actually a very poor nation. Yes, we are rich in resources, but the resources are latent, but we activate them. But we look beyond oil, but we look into solid minerals, but we look into agriculture. But for now, that we are fixated on oil and the revenue that comes from oil, and our government is not thinking out of the box. Everybody is just fixated on oil and what comes from it. But Nigerians deserve a better deal from their government. But honestly speaking, because I'm in the private sector, I rather believe what we should do is how do we strengthen the purchasing power. An average Briton does not earn more than £2,000. And £2,000 is enough for him to fix his life, to live in a comfortable accommodation, to ride a beautiful car, to pay the school fees of his children, and to eat 3 square meals a day. So it's not about the quantum of the money, the volume of the money. It's about the strength. But most often than not, we talk about the quantitative, not the qualitative. And I think we should focus on the qualitative. That is the strength of the purchasing power of our currency. So Nigerians deserve a better deal. Where we need to restructure our economy, we need to ensure that Naira regains its lost glory and the purchasing power is enhanced. Because if you give an average civil servant ₦1 million per month and it costs him 500,000 naira to rent a flat, you have not done him any good. He just have more money in his pocket
and more expenses.
And more expenses.
Well, that's that. The government raising the hopes of workers. That's what the problem is, raising the hopes, and eventually something doesn't come out of it. But we hope for the best for Nigerian workers. Below that story, Ipman insists on improved supply to end petrol crisis. Motor Skill 7 at Calabar Carnival Parade. And the bottom strip of the paper, FCT residents on red alert over possible outbreak of Ebola, cholera, others. And above the banner headline, below the nameplate, Osun Tokun replaces Okukwe as Obi's campaign DG. 15 shots dead in Zamfara, Sokoto. Just yesterday, we're talking about the southern Kaduna killings up north. And then we're hearing about 15 people shot dead again. Insecurity, despite the claims of the president, seems to be something that has come to live with us.
I hope Mr. President is able to achieve the lofty goal of leaving Nigeria safer than he met it. But as it were, from data and statistics, he's not achieving that. And if he's leaving in May next year, and we still witness, killings every day, southern Kaduna is in Sokoto. Honestly, it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. And we need to stem the tide. It's becoming very worrisome. An insecure economy cannot witness any growth. Most often than not, we talk about inflow of investment, inflow of money. I will not invest my money in a country that is troubled. If you go on the website of serious nations of the world that are advised to citizens to avoid Nigeria like a plague, that is not a good story to tell. If there's no direct foreign investment, even Nigerians, if your brother, your sister, your girlfriend is posted to Zamfara, will you allow her to go? Or your brother is posted to Sokoto or to any part of the north, or even the, even the eastern part of Nigeria. Yes. We have restiveness everywhere. You turn to the east, you turn to the north, even southwest. I mean, recently we witnessed what happened along Ibadan-Lagos axis. Very unfortunate. All these corridors must be well policed, and we must stabilize the system. We must calm free nerves and ensure that Nigerians are free to go about without fear of molestation, late or hindrance.
All right. People should be able to go to bed with their two eyes closed and their property safe. Above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, ex-governor Namani predicts Tinubu's victory. That's on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And slain lawyer was pregnant with twins. Page 6 of the Nation, and President Buhari referring to that killing as heinous. Well, that's the much we can take on the newspaper review segment of the program this morning. We'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Femi Adefila, for joining us on the show.
Pleasure.
For your insightful analysis. We'll take this break, and when we come back, we'll bring you our interview for today.
Hello, can you hear me properly? Great.
Victoria. Well, thank you very much for sticking with us on Western Spring Television. The program is Morning Spring, where we'll bring you insightful analysis, engaging interview segment, and of course, what's trending. Remember, we're reaching you live from StarTimes channel 190 DTT platform, and you can follow us on all our social media handles: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Western Spring Television, and on Twitter, it is at WSTV. This morning, we'll be looking at one of the aftermaths of the presidential primaries that occurred earlier this year from the People's Democratic Party and the birth of the Obi movement, as it were. You know, if you go on social media, you are most likely to see every other day a social media trend with the hashtag obedient. And that has become one of the defining factors of the political sphere this year in Nigeria. We're joined live on the show this morning by an Afenifere chieftain and a very foremost governorship aspirant candidate in Osun State here in the last election, Architect Goke Omigbodun.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So let's start from the beginning. The obedient movement seems to be a social media rave at the beginning, but it has since gathered momentum. What changed between June and now?
The realization by the people of Nigeria that there must be that definite change on the landscape. We must go beyond the social media platform. It's like a revolution, and a revolution also would go through cycles. So we have moved from that cycle, that level of just being on social media, holding firmly to the social media, because the social media campaign is still ongoing, but now it's getting down to the grassroots. There are levels of organization going on. You know, some time ago, everybody said, oh, there was no structure on ground, but the structures are beginning to form. And I also understand that issue of structure because most unfortunately in this country, the people that are in governance right now have driven us to the extent of people looking for handouts for survival. And so you need trusted hands at the polling unit level, at ward level, at all levels. And those people are beginning to emerge. You know, when I was doing my campaign for the governorship, I kept on referring to NSAS. I was in the background of NSAS movement thinking and, you know, motivating the younger ones to recognize that things have to change in this country. And now it's very easy for me to now get back to that and begin to still mobilize people. But there's still a lot of difficulty that one will face. And if you now talk of how slow it had been, because one would have expected that the momentum could even have been greater than this. But thank God we still have a few more weeks before the elections, the presidential elections. And I strongly believe that the youth of this country, go and check the registration. You'll discover that the percentage of youths that were registered for the 2018 elections is different from the percentage now in virtually all states of the Federation. I was able to study that of Osun State when I was campaigning for my own election on another party, but I knew all along, having studied all the presidential candidates. In fact, let me tell you, I knew as far back as 3 years ago, and I thought, and I told somebody who can bear me witness, I said I was returning to the PDP to make sure that Peter Obi will get a lot of support. But somehow, again, PDP bungled things. And, so you now find that Peter Obi is having to run on another ticket. And you see, there are so many publics to which we all belong. There are so many. And at the end of the day, you try to rationalize different factors and then determine this is whom I am now going to follow. And in following that person, how are we moving? And in answering your question, we are moving towards making sure that the social media mobilization that started with that EndSARS thinking age group should now get onto the landscape. Admittedly, some of those people will say, oh, they do not have PVCs, or some of them are abroad. But I have just told you that the percentage of those that did not have PVCs in 2018, up till about 6 months ago, the percentage of those that did not have PVCs has changed. So a lot of the younger people in Nigeria today now have their PVCs. They're on social media. They are doing the mobilization. House-to-house campaign is going. Polling units mobilization. A lot of things are going on. And we are believing God that perhaps this time that hypothesis will work. It didn't work for my own election. The hypothesis is that the Nigerians will wake up and go beyond the level of waiting for pittance, for them to decide who to vote for and how to go about elections. Unfortunately, I think about 3 or 4 days ago, there were clips going around of a lot of Nigerians still, queuing up in the house of somebody somewhere who has been part of the system, those who have pillaged the system, those who have drained the entire economy, and they are now giving people little bits for survival. So we still need to work on that to be sure that at the end of the day, the mobilization that we have done this time will not be disrupted by the sudden issue of vote buying, because they are still going to come out with a lot of that money again. They have started it. They are having all those monies distributed to people in front of their houses, and they are not being arrested for having more than 5 million naira in their houses for now. Even when they take bullion vans there, nobody is talking about it. But these are things that we are saying must change within the system, and so everybody must wake up. Why must I queue up in front of somebody's house if I have my own access to good, sustainable, and respectable living? So those are the things that we continue to tell people at the grassroots, and that's why you see that change is continuing to take place. The momentum is gathering. By February this year, by God's grace, we are believing that the hypothesis will work now, that money will play a lesser role in elections, and people of Nigeria, especially the younger people, will wake up to the responsibility of voting somebody who is likely to change their lives for good in terms of sustainable development.
Before we come to the Afenifere's part in all of this, because the Afenifere has been in the news for quite some time now, it's interesting that you should mention that you need to challenge the system and all of that. There are some who believe that having moved from the PDP, from APGA to PDP, Peter Obi is of the old stock, and there's really little or nothing he would do differently. What will he be doing differently?
Well, I have always said one thing. There is good and bad in everyone. There are good people amongst the old stock. There are extremely terrible people amongst the younger stock. So it's a matter of finding out and checking the personalities of people, track records, their visions for the future. And amongst the front runners right now, I dare say Peter Obi is still the best in terms of having a good track record, a good vision, somebody who has been prudent with resources put at his disposal, somebody who does not flaunt an ostentatious lifestyle, somebody who will give you the confidence that the resources of this nation will be safe under his watch. So these are issues that we also need to check. So whether somebody belongs to the old brigade, as you call it, amongst the old brigade, there are good people. If I dare tell you, I've always told people that check amongst the old brigade, don't you have somebody like Olusegun Obasanjo? Tell me which government in this country has been better than Olusegun Obasanjo's one in the last. I wasn't part of his government. I wasn't even part of his party at the beginning. But we saw that he was able to bring a lot of technocrats to do things. A lot of non-politicians then he brought into governance. And those people are still, featuring in international organizations all over the world, showing the reckoning that is in them, which somebody like Olusegun Obasanjo saw and brought such people in. So amongst the old stock, there are still very good people. And we also need to be careful of the rotten eggs amongst the younger ones. So what you need to look out for is, what is this person all about? What is his manifesto? What is his track record? What has he done before? What is he likely to do in the future? Who are the people that are likely to work with him? Those are the issues we should be looking at right now.
Well, this Nigeria has never been this fragmented when it comes to ethnicity and religion.
Definitely.
And it seems that each region is touting its candidate.
Yes.
Why did people like you and of course some leadership, the leadership of the Afenifere, decide to break ranks and pitch tent with Peter Obi? Some weeks ago there was a video of Peter Obi in Ibadan campaigning and Pa Adebanjo was there.
Yes.
So why did the Afenifere not toe the line of the southwest agenda, as it were?
I don't know about any southwest agenda that will discount equity. And I also quickly want you to please do away with that word, break ranks. We are the ones holding the ranks of making sure that there is equity in everything that is done in this country. Listen, there's this Yoruba proverb, and I'll try my best to interpret it to English. It says, "Ajoje ko dun benikan o ni." I mean, you cannot say you have a love feast and then you have one party that has, one table, okay, that has absolutely nothing served there. And you say you are having a love feast. What kind of a love feast is that? There are brilliant people in all parts of this country. There are brilliant people of Fulani and Hausa extraction. There are brilliant people of Jukun, of Ibibio, of Yoruba, of Igbo, and all that. So why are we recognizing the federal character in other issues? So you recognize the federal character in the number of students that you take into federal government colleges. You recognize the number of character in your constitution as to having at least one minister from every state of the federation. But when it now comes to the top job, you think only a section of the people should always have it. No, the PDP would have done a fantastic job by making sure that the presidency came to the South. And you can still see the rumpus in the PDP right now. It's all about not ensuring that that happened. And in that not happening, then you find somebody like a Peter Obi now having to look and get another vehicle, a viable vehicle with which to move and get people on board. And that is what is happening. And a lot of people are getting on board right now. So the Afenifere holding on to equity, recognizing that a love feast is incomplete unless you have every table served. And then you now discover that there are decent people on all the tables. So at the end of the day, you now want to tell me that man of Igbo extraction called Peter Gregory Obi, is he not competent enough? Does he not have the required educational background, the required experiences in terms of governance, the required human feeling? He was the only one that went to check on the internally displaced people, spending his Christmas with those people. I was really, really impressed when I saw that. And there are others just lounging in their houses and doling out things for people who come to queue, to take from whatever bullion vans now discreetly taken so that people do not talk a lot more about bullion vans. This country has suffered enough from the hands of those people who are taking so much and then giving little to you once in 4 years. And it is so sad. Once in 4 years, they buy your conscience, they buy your votes. And then at the end, for 4 years after that, every day of the next 4 years, I don't know what 365 times 4 plus 1 of the leap year comes to, you go begging at their doorsteps. So these are the things that Afenifere saw and said, no, we must make sure that and then one more thing with Peter Obi. Peter Obi was one of those that quickly identified with the restructuring agenda that Afenifere had always spoken about. Now, you will remember that even when I was contesting for the governorship of Osun, one of the things that I wrote, I said I will be a voice, because I knew as a governor there is a limit that you will be able to do. But I know that God has endowed me with a few gifts. And one of those gifts is to be able to articulate my thoughts and explain to people that this is the way to go. And I said, I will definitely be a voice for restructuring if I became governor of Osun. And so if I now didn't become governor of Osun, and there's a likelihood that there will be one person emerging as president who will actually be a bigger voice and show a more positive disposition to restructuring. It is by body language that you understand those who will tell you the truth. Didn't we support the present president when he told us some time ago? I voted, the Afenifere supported Buhari when he said, please, let me just articulate this point. When he said he was going to make sure that he encouraged and facilitated restructuring. But midway into his tenure, he said he did not even understand the meaning of restructuring. What shenanigans. So I do not see Peter Obi doing that.
There are those who say that, you know, that particular move by the Afenifere pitted members of that body with some foremost Yoruba sons and daughters. You know, they were claiming that you wouldn't see other regional bodies like that, like the Arewa Consultative Forum, endorsing someone outside of their region. How does this, you know, how does this speak to the fact that Nigeria is yet to look beyond people politics, they're yet to look beyond regional politics in the interest of the overall country? Now,
you have asked so many questions in one, but let me try and see how I can separate them and answer each. First of all, you cannot put Afenifere on the same pedestal of comparison either with Arewa or Ohanize, because those are socio-cultural organizations. The Afenifere had never pretended that it is a socio-political organization. The Afenifere started the Action Group. The Afenifere started the Alliance for Democracy. The Afenifere had a hand in the Social Democratic Party. And the Afenifere is still thinking of having its own political party again someday, because virtually all of those parties were eventually hijacked by people that we thought were part of us and went against our lines of thinking. So now, if there are some people in Yoruba land that do not necessarily agree with the Afenifere, I would just like to remind you, within the same family, a nuclear family of 4, 5, 6 people, you don't always agree on what to have for breakfast. There will be the mainstream thinking, and there will be others who do not necessarily agree with you. And if, again, what you may be talking about, because I'm going to boldly refer to that, if it's the, what I term it, the ambushing of one of our leaders, you know, those who had abused that leader before, those who did not genuinely sympathize with him when he lost his daughter, those who were wondering where were the cattle when that young woman was killed, and eventually we discovered those that killed her had something to do with the cattle. You know, those are not people that you should necessarily think are Yoruba. And you don't go and ambush a 96, 97-year-old man, you know, and without even letting the immediate family aware of what you are doing, and you think that that man necessarily agrees. And look, old men would always bless everybody. They are fathers to all of us. They are respected by all of us. The old man, when I'm traveling through where he is, I go to visit him. Everybody goes to visit him. He blesses everybody. So that will tell you that Afenifere is one with a strong leadership under Papa Adebanjo. And there are also, I mean, it's you know, in Yoruba land, even within the Agbole system, we have a collegiate of elders that take decisions together. And we do not have the breaking of ranks. We are thinking along one line. people can do what else they think they can do to ambush and distract attention. But we are not a people with that kind of short memory, not to remember where they have led us thus far, what they are still doing with us right now, and how we need to get out of the abyss that they have led us thus far.
All right, thank you. I'd like to pause you there now. We're now joined live on the show by the spokesperson, the spokesperson of the PCC, the Presidential Campaign Council of the Labour Party, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. He joins us live via Zoom. Good morning, Dr. Tanko. Dr. Tanko, can you hear me? Well, we seem to be having some difficulties there. Okay, we'll come back to him. Okay, are you there now, Dr. Tanko? Well, we seem to be having... Oh, okay. Thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning. Well, we seem to be having some connectivity issues there, but I think he's back now. Yes, we can hear you, but the line is breaking. Can you hear us clearly? Oh my, we seem to be having that issue there. But before, okay, while we try to connect to Dr. Tanko again, let me get back to you, Architect Omingbode. You said, you know, that the PDP missed it with Peter Obi by not
missed it without
Peter Obi, yes, by allowing him go.
Yes.
If he had been in the PDP and he had been chosen to fly the flag of the party,
yes,
how much of a task would it be compared to now that he is in the Labour Party?
Well, I must quickly agree with you that it probably would have been an easier task, because PDP has governors, PDP has people at all levels. But again, you must remember that amongst those governors are those that call themselves the Integrity Group now, that also recognize that the same thing that chased Peter Obi away from the PDP would eventually also chase them away. And those are just the governors, those are the ones that are the face of the line of thought. There are people at all levels that were originally conscientious members of the PDP that are also beginning to think that the PDP is not getting it right in this respect. And well, that's not completely strange. It does happen. It happened some time ago in Ondo State, and somebody went, a Mimiko went to Labour Party and got the governorship of Ondo State at that point in time. So yes, it could have been a much easier task if it had been within the PDP, but thank God for the momentum that we have gathered now, thus far, and go and check all the polls. The polls are daily more in favor of Peter Obi than any other candidate right now. And Peter Obi is just the face of the Labour Party, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to put my thumb looking for the portrait of Peter Obi. It's going to be Labour Party. So that is what is happening right now. And we are up to the task. And you discover people from all political parties, and then now essentially the younger people. You know, you may not even be able to tell, perhaps even if we had used the PDP, a few of the younger elements that are now so passionate, you know, about Peter Obi and doing things without necessarily looking for shishi. Now, let me tell you, I've said it, but just to lay emphasis on it, a lot of politicians, even in all those small political parties, I've been through it, I've seen it. What they are looking for is survival patterns, which they are used to from the bigger political parties, which may be a little, discouraging for a few other younger people who now see an opportunity to see that this is perhaps the cleanest of all the slates, even if you say all the slates are dirty, and that this one is where we can fly our line of thought of saying, no, let's do away with vote buying, relying on so-called political leaders for pittance, for survival. Let us follow our passion. Let us vote somebody that we believe is able to lead Nigeria out of the abyss that we are in right now, of insecurity, of poverty, of, lack of industrialization, of, an economy that, how can we have crude oil, and then you send such abroad for refinery and then bring back? And we've been doing that for ages. Before I got here today, I saw long queues in front of several petrol stations that I had to pass through before getting to this place. And it hurts me that we could just have modular refineries. And go and check the Peter Obi manifesto. He said he's going to leapfrog Nigeria into the fourth industrial revolution. He said he's going to change our economy from a consumption one to a producing one. And of course, the first things he spoke about, this issue of insecurity and poverty, and then my own heart's desire and the heart of Afenifere, the restructuring of the polity. So these are things that people are talking about right now.
So the Nigerian political system is heavily monetized. It is one of the problems. Okay, so I think we have Dr. Yunusa Tanko back on the program. Dr. Yunusa Tanko is the chief spokesman of the Peter Obi Datti Ahmed Presidential Campaign Council. Good morning once again, Dr. Tanko. Oh, well, Dr. Tanko is gone again, not gone, but gone over the network. Now, I was going to ask you, looking at the size now of the Labour Party compared to the other parties, how will your party compete favorably when it comes to logistics and all of those mobilization issues? All right, we have Dr. Tanko back on the line. Good morning, Dr. Tanko. Oh my, that's one of the issues that whoever becomes president next year must fix. We must have a stable internet connection and all of that. But how does your party, the Labour Party, now compare with other parties, and how do you try to match them strength for strength in terms of logistics and mobilization?
Well, I have answered this question already because you have asked it in another way. And you have acknowledged yourself that between June and now, there has been a lot more mobilization of younger people who are educated, who may not necessarily be the kind that are looking for hands out, but those that believe in sustainable development. So that is going to go a long way. So the Peter Obi campaign is not necessarily about Labour Party. You want to understand. For instance, in joining the Peter Obi support group, so to say, through Afenifere, I haven't collected any Labour Party membership card.
Hello.
But okay.
All right, Dr. Tanko, good morning. Can you hear me? Oh, well. So, yes, I would allow you to finish.
So what we are trying to say is that the paradigm is shifting. And because the paradigm is shifting, we are still testing that hypothesis to be sure that it will have shifted enough by February this year away from vote buying. And we are going to monitor more of that. What happened in Osun was vote buying. I dare say everybody that spoke with me, and I've met foremost traditional rulers that I didn't even know that they ever knew me, that said, who had been looking for you to congratulate you and tell you that your performance at the debate was the best. You are the best governor Osun State yet does not have. But you and I know that elections in Osun in July this year were essentially bought. Some political parties, when they saw desperately that they were going to lose, and they still lost alongside myself too, were buying votes for 20,000 naira per vote. We have some of these people who are ready to testify about some of these things. You know, when if that becomes an issue that, if at all, it must be discussed. And they are the party in government right now. And while I was campaigning, I was always saying about how they were distributing, paying salaries to members of their political parties. All of you were here, you had that. So that's the same thing they've been doing.
I'd like to pause you now. We seem to have Dr. Yunusa Tanko on the line. Good morning, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. Hello, Dr. Tanko.
Who is stopping him now?
Oh, well, we're still having issues connecting to him. We hope to bring him on the show before the program ends to speak to some other issues of the political movement of Peter Obi. Now, Peter Obi's mantra, we know they give shishi.
Yes.
It's simply implying that he's going to run a frugal government.
Yes.
That movement, that statement has been frowned at by some of Nigeria's elite, because of his plans to cut down on the cost of governance and some of his other campaign promises.
Yes.
How do you see this affecting next year's election, considering the fact that these people who are elite are heavily involved in the political process through their funds?
I am not going to pretend. I'm a little bit afraid about that, because that's exactly the same mantra I went into my governorship campaign with. And I did that because that's what I believe in. And some people asked me, but why, knowing that you are not going to buy votes and knowing that you don't have the kind of humongous resources at your disposal that some brought from Lagos to come and, dominate us in Osun and all that. And I said, we still had to, and right now for Peter Obi, we still have to let people know that there is an alternative paradigm. Everything does not have to be about taking shishi from people who eventually will take 9 away from you every day. When we were growing up, there was toro, that's 3 pence. There was shishi, which is 6 pence. And there was 9, which is 9 pence. So those people give you shishi for 1 day and take 9 pence from you every day of their tenure. And we are saying, no, that should stop. So, it's still an hypothesis. I am believing that if the hypothesis didn't work for me in my governorship candidate contest, perhaps it may work for Peter Obi in his presidential bid. It's not as if funds will not be deployed for campaign. It's not as if funds will not be deployed for social media, for billboards, for radio jingles. They are on television, on radio, everywhere. A lot of logistic movements. People are traveling around on this campaign issue. So a lot of money is being spent. But we are saying we do not believe in buying votes. And that's what caught my attention too. And I said, let me live wherever I am. This is the vehicle that is most similar to the kind of vehicle that I drove for the governorship of Osun. Perhaps this being a bigger vehicle and perhaps a lot more people from all over the federation. And all we need is for him to have the greatest number of votes and have at least 25% in 2/3 of the states of the federation. I believe that God can do it, and Peter Obi will be the next president of Nigeria.
You mentioned polls earlier in one of your answers to my questions.
Yes.
And there are some who say that online polls do not translate to election results and that some of those polls can be instigated, they can be slanted. What is the reality when it comes to online polls and the actual voting?
Everybody would talk of situations as they favor them. I am used to listening to politicians talking about statistics. And sometimes they can even reel out truisms about statistics without going to the real truth behind the statistics. So let those who do not yet recognize that the paradigm is fast shifting, has shifted so much, and is still going to shift further till February, let them continue to deceive themselves and think everything is all about social media. I also agree with you that, yes, perhaps a lot more of social media at the beginning, but I have just told you, go and check the percentage of the youth that are registered for the elections. I think the percentage earlier on was just slightly more than 60%, but now it's about 73% of the youth of the voting population are youth. So then what are you talking about? Are these not the social media generation that are the ones that now suddenly woke up and didn't register for previous elections and now have PVCs?
All right, let's see if we can bring in Dr. Eunice Tanko. Good morning, Dr. Tanko. Well, we're trying to connect to the spokesman of the Peter Obi Dati Ahmed Presidential Campaign Council of the Labour Party to help us make sense of some of the issues, where it seems network is getting in way of that conversation this morning. It would really be nice to have him on the show to speak to some of these issues.
Well, I won't mind if you can raise some of those issues if I'm able to handle
Yes,
them.
of course. I'm going to come. I'm going to come to you now.
He has a lot more information than I ever have for now.
Okay, Dr. Tanko, good morning. Hello, Dr. Tanko. Well, while we try to connect to him, elections are won on battlegrounds,
yes.
strongholds, and some other places. Where do you see Peter Obi strong? Looking at the recent election predictions by the This Day Media Group, so they gave Obi some across the 6 geopolitical zones. North Central, he had 35% in Plateau, and all of those states there. Where do you see him being really challenged for the presidency?
Now, I'm going to answer your question completely differently from the way you asked it and what your expectations are. You want me to be compartmentalizing Nigeria in terms of the states, and I am not able to do that. But my observation is in terms of the age groupings. And I have seen that Peter Obi is going to get a lot of votes from the youth.
Will it be enough to bring him into power?
More than enough to bring him to power, and that will now be a spread all over the federation. I'm not going to tell you for now, in this particular state, in that particular. My experiences during my own elections have taught me a number of things, and there are several publics that would have to be factored into the voting system. There are those publics that have to do with the political parties. There are those publics that have to do with ethnicity. There's those publics that have to do with the delineation of states. There are those publics that have to do with religion. There are those publics that have to do with age range. There are those publics that have to do with businesses and commerce and so many other things, industry. And if you factor all of these things together, I see Peter Obi getting a good spread throughout the federation. And if he does not emerge on the first ballot, then definitely, ultimately, he's emerging.
Well, there's been so much talk about a possible runoff, which is why
that's what
this day gave their projections. How possible? How possible do you see a runoff at the presidential level? We've seen it at the gubernatorial level.
Yes.
But do you see, in all fairness, this happening on the presidential level?
I actually pray it does not happen. But let me tell you the truth, and people may not be too happy to hear this. The people in power right now do not want to lose the power. They are going to heavily monetize the system the way they did in Osun State, buying votes for as high as 20,000 naira per vote. And then the other people who I can say are also near front runners with Peter Obi are also desperate. They recognize that having contested for several times in times past, this is like their last card. They are also deploying a lot of resources. Didn't you see what happened at the primaries of both political parties? How people were being given $10,000 and the EFCC did not see that. The EFCC has not convicted any of them, but that's an aside. So the question is, am I sure there is not going to be a runoff? It may be a contention, a battle between fair-minded, positive-looking Nigerians and those ones, the fair-minded and positive-looking ones, will vote for Peter Obi, and then those that will be aching for pittance, those ones we get from those other two front runners. And at the end of the day, we are not yet sure. We are hoping that those that will be selling their votes will distribute their votes, selling and merchandising between those two in such a way that will let Peter Obi emerge and become the president on first ballot. But if it does not happen, I tell you, if there is any runoff at all, straight away, Peter Obi is coasting home to victory.
That's some bold statement from architect Omigbodun there. But let's look at the Labour Party now. When Peter Obi came on board, it was fragmented. There were factions and all of that. How was the man able to manage that crisis and then come out unscathed?
Well, honestly, I wish Dr. Tanko were brought in to be able to answer that, because all that time I was busy for my own gubernatorial campaign in another political party entirely. But I can hazard a guess. If somebody comes into a system and is able to reorder that place, then you know that God has given him the vision and, you know, the acumen to be able to reorder anything. There are others who went into a system and made sure that they kicked this one out and kicked that one out. And at the end of the day, some of them are calling themselves Integrity Group now. And I strongly believe that if they truly have the integrity that they are laying claims to, then eventually they will come to Peter Obi. And so because they will see, here is a man that went into a system and reorganized the place. To me, you know, I'm also a pastor. That just reminds me of, you know, Genesis in chapter 1, you know, and God, the Spirit of the Lord moved and said, let there be light, and there was light. So if Peter Obi moved into Labour Party and was able to bring order there, then I strongly believe if he moves into Aso Rock Villa as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he's going to bring a lot more order. The banditry will go. All this queuing for fuel at filling stations would go. People will be more content with their lives. All these agitations and aspirations for Biafra, Yoruba nation, and all kinds of things will go, because at the end of the day, what people want actually is good governance. If there is good governance, there will be nobody agitating for, who cares? You know something? Do you know that many people in the US don't even know their governors? I had an experience, I've said it on your radio station several times, that the governor of a neighboring state, you know, walked into the same restaurant that a cousin of mine took me for lunch, and nobody, it was just my cousin that said, oh, that's the governor of so state. I said, no, that can't be. The man just casually walking, just with his wife. And then he walked over to him, no security man, nothing. You know, he walked over to him, and then eventually we took photographs with the man, governor of the neighboring state. Why am I telling you that? That's the way good governance works, in such a way that it doesn't matter who is running that government, as long as we have good governance. But here, people have to go and queue up at the entrance, the door mouth of the man that is controlling the governors, and then queue up at the door mouth of that. Will stop by God's grace when Peter Obi becomes president.
So let's look at the people around Peter Obi now.
Yes.
The leader is just as good in terms of policies and in terms of will, political will now, talking politics, is just as good as the people around him. Are you satisfied with the caliber of people that are moving around Peter Obi?
I am satisfied thus far. And again, I will also let you know that the leadership, the ultimate leadership, will determine how others will behave with his own body language. I always wonder, why is it that the same policemen in Nigeria that would kill a pregnant woman on Christmas Day will still be the same ones that will go for missions abroad and would win laurels? Why is it that the same Nigerians, if you've been on connecting flights before, and perhaps maybe you're coming from the US, everybody is well behaved on the aircraft all the way till you get to Europe, and then when it's now the last flight that is coming to Lagos, you see all kinds of rancor and disorganization. That is because the people have been led by the leadership to believe that might is right, you don't need order. But when somebody comes with the right order, then all those people around Peter Obi will also have no choice than to toe the line of the body language of the leader. I have seen the body language of Peter Obi, and honestly, I have not even seen anybody around him thus far that does not conform with that body language. So if somebody like that emerges the president of Nigeria, oh, no doubt, then the body language will go down the lines at the state level, at the local level, and before you understand, you know what is happening, we will have order again in this country.
Let's talk controversies now. The leading presidential candidates of the other parties, Atiku Abubakar of the PDP and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC.
I actually didn't want to mention names. I don't know why you are mentioning those names.
Have been in the eye of the storm for different reasons.
Yes,
some of them very laughable, yes, and some of them very worrisome, yes, for the Nigerian people.
Yes.
And then recently, the former Director General of Peter Obi's PCC,
yes,
Doyin Okupe, was convicted.
Yes.
And then a lot of persons began to kick up the narrative that, well, you see, they are all the same thing, all of this, nobody is a saint and all of that. How does Peter Obi, his integrity now, is it still intact?
What was Doyin Okupe convicted for? I'm asking you now. Let me now be the journalist. You answer that question. What was Doyin Okupe
you have to answer my question first.
Now, Doyin Okupe was convicted for having more than 5 million naira at his disposal as cash.
But there are still some other charges.
But that is the biggest of the charge. That is the main thrust of the charge. And somebody had millions of people that queued in front of his house over Christmas, and you have not gone to arrest him. Somebody had a bullion van that drove into his premises the other election. Look, crime has no time frame. I'm not a lawyer, but I studied enough of law to understand that. And you have not gone to take those people. Some people were going around, they claimed that they were distributing trader money, and it was during elections, and it was in millions of naira. You have not gone to take care of those people, charge them, and get them convicted. I mean, so this kind of conviction is laughable to me. And honestly, I respect Doyin Okupe for one thing. Unlike most other Nigerians who will just still be there and say that I must be there and I must sit there, the man said, if this is going to distract the attention of people, let me get to the background. I still respect him for that. Has anybody in any of those other political parties that you are mentioning been that respectable? Are they still not distributing money? Were they not seen distributing dollars at their primaries? Has anybody done any? And those dollars, are they no more than 5 million naira? Hey, wait a minute, how much is 5 million naira when you talk of these people? So these are issues that you need to wonder about. So I do not see how that has affected the integrity of Peter Obi's campaign. If anything, the fact of Doyin Okupe stepping aside or stepping down or whatever, but at least leaving the stage and letting somebody like Akin or Osuntokun to now ultimately be put in that position is a strong point for the Peter Obi campaign organization. Yeah. One that shows integrity of purpose on the part of both Doyin Okupe and Peter Obi. And now with Akin Osuntokun there. Akin Osuntokun had been Director General of the campaign.
Yes, I was going to come to that.
Okay, so
Dr. Doyin Okupe and Akin Osuntokun both have links to President Olusegun Obasanjo. Okay. And then you spoke earlier about Chief Obasanjo being the best, if not one of the best presidents.
That's my personal opinion. You may not agree with me.
You spoke. I'm speaking to your opinion now.
Yes.
Do you think that Peter Obi is trying to take from what you describe as the best?
I strongly believe, without having to reference individuals and personalities like Obasanjo, that Peter Obi wants to drink from the same pot of wisdom and integrity in terms of getting professionals, not necessarily politicians, to work with him, which is the same pot that Obasanjo drank from. Now, a lot of those that are politicians today from all parts of Nigeria were not necessarily politicians when President Olusegun Obasanjo brought them into his government. I will ask you, was the CBN governor and later emir of Kano, was he a politician? Okonjo-Iweala, was she a politician? I'm not sure Nasiru El-Rufai was a politician. I am not sure that Akinwumi Adesina was a politician. I'm not sure that this lady, Madam Due Process, was a politician, you know, but all these were people that worked with Obas. He went to scout for them all over. So I will not be surprised if Peter Obi does something like that. And mind you, listen to all those names that I mentioned. They are from all the geopolitical zones of the country. So I see Peter Obi doing something like that too. And that is what can lead Nigeria out of the abyss that these people, that all their pronouncements are carried, has led us thus far.
So how much of an impact will Akin Osuntokun have on the obedient movement?
I strongly believe that Akin Osuntokun, having done so much in the Southwest already, you know, I have worked with him in the Southwest. I've been in touch with him. I've seen what he has been able to do as the Southwest coordinator of the campaign council. And I have no doubt somebody who had actually done it before. He was a director of the campaign organization that the PDP used in getting Obasanjo his second tenure. I mean, so he is experienced in that already. I have seen integrity of purpose in him. You cannot doubt his intelligence. You cannot doubt his exposure. He's been managing director of the News Agency of Nigeria. He's been presidential aide. He's been all over this country. So he knows how to handle things. And if I reckon with the way I have seen him handle the campaign council in the Southwest, we are in for a fantastic, faster pace in getting things done throughout Nigeria and making sure that Peter Obi becomes the next president of
Well, before I let you go on the show this morning, there's been a lot been said about Peter Obi
Yes.
And the obedient movement.
Yes.
Do you have any reservations? Do you have any fears ahead of next year?
Well, I am not going to pretend that I do not have personal reservations. One we have mentioned, and I'll mention it again. Will this hypothesis finally work? That people will do away with votes buying and selling and recognize that integrity of purpose is more important? Then will some of these bandits in some parts of the country and agitators for independent nations out of Nigeria allow us to have a peaceful election? These are things that I personally have been thinking about and praying that God will take absolute control. But other than that, if we have a free, fair, credible, and ultimately acceptable elections, I see Peter Obi becoming the next president and Yusuf Datti the vice president.
Well, we'd like to leave it at that this morning. We've been speaking with architect Goke Omigbodu, who's an Afenifere chieftain and a former governorship candidate in the Osun governorship elections. We've been talking about Peter Obi, the obedient movement, and of course the Labour Party's chances in next year's general elections. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning.
My pleasure to be here with you.
And we wish you the best in all of your campaigns. Do remember to stay safe and stay out of trouble.
I will, and I hope you'll congratulate us when Peter Obi becomes the next president.
Well, the electorate will congratulate whoever becomes president. Well, that's the interview segment of the program this morning on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. I'll be back after this break to bring you up to speed with what is trending, who is trending, and why they are trending. Stay with us.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Arrested affected. Sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever expounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission. Even diffusion. Vast and fast. Detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Here are 5 amazing fun facts I bet you never knew about Christianity.
Number 1, there are over 2.4 billion Christians worldwide.
Amazing fun fact number 2. The Bible is one of the best-selling books of all time, with more than 100 million copies sold every year.
Most Christians believe in heaven and hell.
The Bible is the most translated book in the world, with more than 3,000 languages.
Amazing fun fact number 5. Most Christians throw science out of the window without realizing that most scientists are Christians. Hello, I am Pastor Steve Akinwumi.
And I am Dr. Adeoye Oyewole.
Join us as we highlight and discuss day-to-day issues pertaining to the day-to-day living of every Christian.
Issues in Christendom shows every Sunday on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
According to the words of Michael Forbes, one who never asks questions.
Ẹ̀yin tèmi báwo ni o ṣe wà? Lẹ́lẹ́lẹ́lẹ́lẹ́lẹ́lẹ́. Olóòtú Aliku, good morning and welcome to Spring Trend of Western Spring Television. All right, good morning and welcome again to this segment of the program. Spring Trend is what you're watching on Western Spring Television, where we bring you who is trending, why they are trending, what is trending, and of course, what people are saying about the who, the what, and why. I feel in the mood of, Christmas and New Year. And I want to go back to my roots as a trenches. Okay. So my name is Emmanuel Ojadegele, and you already know what we do here on the program. We start on the political fronts this morning. The 5 governors in the PDP, known as the Integrity Group, the G5, they are the people who are aggrieved after the presidential primary elections of the People's Democratic Party, led by Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State. They have decided to abstain from the PDP's presidential campaign. In fact, they're asking the national chairman to resign because you cannot have the chairman of the party from the north and the presidential candidate of the party from the north. Now, these 5 governors have reportedly jetted out to the United Kingdom. The G5 governors have moved from Nigeria to the United Kingdom, where we've been told that they will be announcing who their preferred candidate is in the coming presidential election. And so that's where we start this morning to tell you that Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia State, Seyi Makinde of Oyo, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu, and Samuel Ortom of Benue State have all gone out to the United Kingdom to meet, do a retreat, and then come back by January to give us who their presidential candidate will be. Now, let's see how people have reacted to that particular incident on social media. That's they have the picture of the 5 governors there. From left to right, you have Seyi Makinde of Oyo, and that's Okezie Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu, Nyesom Wike of Rivers, Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia, and of course Samuel Ortom of Benue State. Now let's go straight to the comments and what people have been saying on the online about the issue of the G5 of the governor in the United Kingdom. Professor Olushore says, I heard the G5 governors will hold a meeting to decide how many of them will support Peter Obi and Bola Tinubu. My small advice for Governor Seyi Makinde is that in anything, he should not declare his support for APC's Bola Tinubu. His silence is better. The next comment is from Kowa Ishaku Yahaya says, deep down, I do not want the G5 governors to endorse Peter Obi. As much as we may crave their support, we must acknowledge that the endorsement of Peter Obi would come with a heavy price. They are too transactional. Next comment is from Imran Mohammed. Imran says G5 governors relocated to London to finalize decision on who to back for the president. A source said before they left, Atiku Abubakar was already out of the equation. Both Okowa and Emmanuel Udom did not succeed in prevailing on the G5 to support the PDP candidate. Next comment is from Chinasa. Chinasa says, I don't care whoever the G5 governors may support. My main fear is that I don't want Seyi Makinde to shoot himself. He should rather remain silent because we, the people of Oyo State, still need him rather than Teslim Bolari. The next comment is from Kudus Akambi Eleyi of Lagos. It says, Dear Obedient supporting the Labour Party, let me remind you that Wike of the G5 governors said to Peter Obi in Rivers, he said he will only support Obi with logistics. So erase your mind in Wike endorsing Obi and start preparing how to cancel Seyi Makinde. Next comment is from Engineer Kinsley. It says, G5 governors, Nigeria is at a crossroad. The life of citizens and the collective growth of the nation is at stake. This is no time for political show. Take your stand. Let us know where you stand with Nigerians in this critical moment. No time to waste. No time to check time. Lord Justice is the next comment. It says, Dear Obedient, do not expect the G5 governors to endorse Peter Obi. They may not, because Tinubu is politically more transactional than Obi. Brace up for the shock. Raise your heads high. Remember when we started, we never expected any governors to join us. Next comment is from Martins Ifije. It says, governors are powerful. Their roles in logistics and campaign play major roles in winning or losing an election. As the G5 governors perfect their plans on who to support between Tinubu and Peter Obi, they should put into consideration what each candidate stands for. And we'll take the last comment from Afam Sylvester. Says, it doesn't matter whether the G5 governors endorse Peter Obi or not, because it might come with a price. Peter Obi will still win with or without the G5 governors' support. Now that's that on Peter Obi and the G5 governors who are, trying to go to Lagos and give us who they will be supporting for next year's governorship election. Now, away from that, let's do some little banter on the show this morning. It's been a while. Now, a rapper in Lagos, called out Lagos State. Lagos is being touted as one of the best places to live, one of the finest cities. But this person has some really strong words for the Lagos community. Yesterday, this rapper says, and I'd like to read to you what he said yesterday. It says, Dear Lagosians, there are 36 states in Nigeria. Nigeria does not start and end in Lagos. People live in Calabar, Port Harcourt, Akwa Ibom, Enugu, Benin, and Delta, and they have amazing lives. They do not drink yellow water and spend half of their lives in traffic or pay expensive rent. You people pay for luxury and do not even enjoy any luxury. You pay rent and still live like you're in boarding school. Even Lagos people go to Abuja and think they are abroad. They cannot believe that ordinary people should enjoy the basic things Abuja people enjoy because of their classist mentality. Most mainland people have better lives than island people. Let's look at the next part of Lagos in the mud. Most people will say, I cannot afford Lagos life. LOL, me where they do urgent 2K for people, where they get likes past me for Instagram. Me where they follow on a big ballers go club. They know they hold money to pay for anything, and I they chest my bill. LOL, if only you people know the truth. I actually have a house in PH and another in Lagos, blah, 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 and all of that. Now he's saying that I say what most of you want to say, but aren't bold enough to say. Most of you have different opinions, but your popular opinions, we follow popular opinions because you don't want to be dragged. But the more you remain silent, the more a dead narrative begins to look like truth. Now let's see how Lagosians have come out en masse to defend themselves. The first comment is from St. Good Vibes. He said, it's funny that even Lagosians right now can't even respond to him because they are still in traffic and might not even respond when they get home because they are so tired. And the traffic in Lagos is something else. The next comment is from Adedayo. Adedayo says, I just watch all these small boys who never come out for Lagos all their lives, glorify Lagos. I was born in Lagos and I've traveled across Nigeria. Lagos is the worst place to live. You will know if you don't travel to places. That's from Adedayo. That's his opinion on the matter there. The next comment, I see some persons are angry Unkpe, Unkpaka, 1-1. Now, thoughts and ideation says, L-Take. I'm staying in Abuja now and I've been complaining since I moved here in October. All I can say is Lagos is far better. Things in Abuja are more expensive and even of lower quality than the ones in Lagos. I wasn't based in the island though. Lawrence Andy says, I have never lived in Lagos for more than 2 weeks. I will not be smarting to stay there. I they mostly congratulate my guys who they live for that state. From Seme to Mile 2. Oh my God, nothing to write about. Victor Chiku Buikem says, Lagos is one of the places I would like to visit, but if I remember the stress with food there, I go kuku change my mind. Lagos is not good for my health. I agree totally. How do I wake up by 3 a.m. to beat traffic and on top that, still chase taxi? You know, they say that this person is a hustler. The person is still hustling. Well, Uchman Benjamin says, right from day one, I never liked Lagos. Abuja is city for peace of mind. Thank you. If you wake up by 8 a.m. for a job of 9 a.m., you will still make it early to work, even with commercial bus. Same with Osogbo anyway. But you all should not come to Osogbo. Please stay in your Lagos and deal with the traffic situation. People living in Lagos think they live better and luxury lives more than others. Come Abuja, una go humble. Come Osogbo, you'll be more humble. K Baba Nigeria says, spot on. Last time I was in Lagos, I kept telling my cousin that Lagos people are suffering, both rich and poor. I can never live in Lagos. I've been saying this for over a decade. Lagos is like underworld. I agree. Benny Efosa says, somebody just has to say it. Lagos is a terrible place to stay. Bad air, crazy traffic for no reason, no suitable water, crazy paramilitary officials, home of tout, high rental apartments, not even be to standard. No, I beg. Come on, Ribi. Oju, something, look well. Well, that's all we have for you on the trends this morning. Don't forget to follow me on the social media. EM Uju Adigele on Twitter. And of course, you can look at our social media handles on Facebook and Instagram, Western Spring Television. On YouTube, Western Spring Television. Remember to subscribe to our channel when you find us on YouTube. And to all the people who are afraid, who are annoyed because we said Lagos is not a very good place to live, this is all I have to say to you. Unkpe, Unkpaka, and Itoba Binu, Kulo Transformer. Peace out. See you tomorrow morning.
Is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life.